Hello everyone, it's Brianna here with your Tuesday tip. I hope that you've been enjoying the videos so far. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about fear and how to use fear in a positive way rather than letting it stop you in your tracks. I really like the title, Keep Your Friends Close and Your Enemies Closer. Have you ever heard that saying? It can be pretty true at times, right? Like you want to know what your enemies are doing behind the scenes so that you can prepare to address and kind of avoid whatever issues would come from their attempts to sabotage you. Yeah. Well, fear is kind of the same way. You can think of like positive thoughts and all of your hopes and dreams. They're like your friends, right? Well, your fears are your enemy. At least that's the way a lot of people look at fear. Understandably so. It doesn't actually feel that great to be afraid. It's not one of the more pleasant things to deal with, but it can be super useful. It can be really, really, really useful to have fear. And so the problem is when it comes to fear that sometimes people feel fear and they let it stop them in their tracks. They let the fear dictate what they can and can't do. Like I can't take this step because I'm too afraid. I can't speak in public because I have stage fright, or I can't move to a different city for a job because I'm afraid to make new friends, or to be in a new city. I'm afraid to change my life. And actually, fear can stop us from making a lot of really positive changes in our lives because the fear, we have a natural fear of change. If we don't know exactly what it's going to look like on the other side, fear can really stop us from making positive changes. But there are also these people who kind of insist that they're fearless, right? I know my mom said to me once that, I couldn't possibly understand fear because I'm fearless. And I found that hilarious because, like, I am not fearless. I have a lot of fears. I have a fear of failing in this business. I have lots of fears of rejection, the same fears as everyone else. On a pretty daily basis. But the difference is the way that I use those fears. The people who deny that the fears exist, one way or another, those fears come back around. And if you aren't keeping them in your line of vision, they can easily start driving. They can easily take the steering wheel and start making your decisions for you if you're not aware of them. So that's why it's really important to watch the rest of this video to learn how to use your fears to your advantage, because we really can't ever make them completely go away. We can only figure out how to work with them well. So that is what I'm going to teach you here. And spoiler alert, a big part of this is awareness of the fears and acceptance that they will always exist, in order to use them to your advantage. So I'll dive in a little bit more here to this idea of fear, and like what are fears, because we can get really wrapped up in details of fears. Like we're afraid of a very specific outcome, or we're afraid of getting a very specific thing happen to us. Like we're afraid of an illness, we're afraid of getting cancer, or we're afraid of breaking bones, or we're afraid of something physical, or we're afraid of being cheated on, we're afraid of losing our loved ones, we're afraid of being laughed at or rejected, or turned down. All of these things. There are a lot of different things that people can be afraid of, but typically there are some really base fears that are being played on when we're afraid of anything else. So something that one of my business mentors has said, her name is Elizabeth Purvis, is that fears tend to be regarding a loss of love, safety, or belonging. At their core, we're fearing a loss of love, safety, or belonging. And these fears, like I was mentioning before, when we're afraid of them, they can stop us from taking action to move in the right direction. It results in this resistance, this feeling blocked, because our bodies are physically having a response to stop us from moving forward towards this change. If we're afraid of losing like love, safety, or belonging, and these fears, fear of loneliness, or fears of loss, fears of dying, fears of rejection, fear of failure, like there are some very core fears. This is the point to get here, that there are very core fears that are underneath the specific details of whatever your mind is chattering around about you being afraid of. Like if you're afraid of a certain reaction that someone might have to you, you're afraid of them rejecting you. Yeah, like possibly. Or if you're afraid that someone's going to break up with you if you tell them what you need, you're afraid of a rejection there too. All kinds of different things. But if we're focused on the details, then we can get really stuck up there in the details, and we let the fear drive our decision making rather than taking control of the situation and acting in the way that's best for us, in the way that will bring us more of what we want in our life and move us forward. It's important to keep, moving forward. We only get one shot here, yeah, so let's not let fear drive the ship. But so, as I kind of mentioned before, fears, they have a physical response in our body when we start getting close to making a change, when we start, inching inching forward, and we start to feel like our heart racing, or we feel, sometimes it can show up as like a sluggishness. And generally, that happens when we aren't keeping that fear in our sights. We're not accepting that those very core fears exist and will always exist for every single person. It's part of being human. It doesn't mean that you can't do something. It doesn't mean that your fears are going to come true if you act on the things that you want. It just means that you're naturally experiencing a little fear that comes along with it. So when these fears come up in our body, sometimes we interpret those sensations in a way that stop us from moving forward. And this is really when it becomes a problem, or it becomes a problem when we don't even recognize that it's fear that's causing the resistance that we're having. So when we're starting to feel this, it's important to really take note and watch how we're interpreting these things. So I'd like to give you a little story to illustrate this point for you. There was a study that was done. You can Google it if you want. Bruce Springsteen and stage fright. There are a bunch of celebrities that experience stage fright, performing artists. And what they've seen is that the same people, if you look at how people describe stage fright, they describe it with these symptoms like heart racing, feeling nauseous, clammy hands, those types of things. But if you ask a performing artist what sensations they feel before going on stage, they'll say the same thing. They experience, racing heart. They experience some nausea. They experience clammy hands. They're experiencing the same symptoms, but they're doing different things with them. They're interpreting them differently. One group is saying, oh, I'm having the stage fright, so I can't possibly go on stage ever because I experience these symptoms when I'm about to go on stage. And the other group is saying, when I get these symptoms, I know it's time to perform. I know it's time to go on stage. And it can be really uncomfortable, but they still use it. They even lean into it to get amped up. Seriously, Google this, because there are plenty of articles that talk about this if you know where to look. And if you need help finding them, then you know how to reach me. But so I would like to encourage you to take a couple actions the next time you notice this fear happening. I want to teach you here how to tune into that fear and use it to your advantage. So the next time you're feeling a little afraid of something, the first trick is to notice that it's happening. If we don't notice that it's happening, if we don't accept that it is occurring, then we're hopeless. Like, we have to see it happening. We have to notice what's going on. Try and stop that train of thought. Try and stop the thought in its tracks, the details. Resist the urge to get wrapped up in the specific details of fear and anxiety. You know, the thoughts that are saying you're never going to succeed, the thoughts that are saying you're never going to meet the person that you're meant to be with, you're never going to be happy, you're, you know, whatever, all of these things. It's kind of easy to notice these critics because they speak in extremes, and I'm kind of planning on doing a video on that later. But anyway, notice when your mind is going into that. Stop the train of thought. One easy way to do this is to repeat to yourself a mantra. I like the mantra, I can survive. If you're having a hard time slowing that train of thought down, repeat to yourself, I can survive. Replace the words that are going on in your head. I can survive. I can survive. I can survive. When you start feeling that fear, okay? That's step one. Step two is to tune into your senses, okay? I want you to notice when you're afraid and you take in the view of the room. Notice that your senses, your vision is heightened. You notice more acute detail in the room around you. Notice that you can hear more clearly, more acutely, the different sounds that are around you. Dive into what you're feeling physically. You know, feel the air on your skin, feel the clothes on your skin. This is leaning into the fear. Feel it, experience it, and experience that heightened awareness that comes along with it, that really is preparing you to act, which is step three. Step three, when you're feeling fear, after you've, you know, taken the mind by the reins, after you've tuned into your senses and you're really diving into that fear and experiencing it, take an action that's taking you closer to the life that you want, even if it's a little scary to take. Make a phone call that you've been putting off. You know, ask a question to somebody about a job that might be open, or ask about, you know, their experience in a new city you're considering moving to, or, you know, whatever. Have a conversation with a loved one that you've been putting off about what you need from them due to fears around having that conversation. Take a small step in that direction and notice that the fear doesn't have to stop you from acting. It doesn't. You know, everyone has fear. Everyone has fear. Everyone has these core fears of losing love, safety, or belonging. Okay? Those are always going to be operating on some level in your subconscious. The key to working with them is to keep your eye on them. Know that they exist. Know that they are going to try and sabotage your results, and say, you know what, I hear you, but we're going to keep acting anyway. We're going to get the life that we want anyway. I'm not going to let this fear stop me. And I would love to hear what you guys think about this. Please, if you have questions, comments, anything, post them below in the comments section. If this is something that's helpful for you, I would really love to hear about it. And also, I would love you to consider that as much help as these videos could be, we are always going to get farther along on your path. We're going to get more results if we actually take the time and work together personally so that we can overcome your specific challenges that you have, because these fears, man, they look different for everyone. Even though on a core level they're the same, they replicate themselves in patterns that look different for everyone, and it's really hard to see those deep-seated patterns all by yourself. So just keep that in mind. And if you ever need some help, if you ever want a little extra guidance getting where you want to be in life, I hope that you'll consider me. And I will see you on Thursday for your next tip. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I can't wait to hear how it goes for you. Bye, guys.